Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. Well, the whole gang is back together. We got Joel from his childhood bedroom. Joel, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I got my kids' room. This is the one place where the cats, I've been able to secure the cats from entering. They tore apart the house that one time we tried to do the podcast, and that didn't go well.
Yeah, you got a beautiful IKEA dresser, I think, in the background. And of course, I don't know if I should throw stones when it comes to backgrounds in terms of this. I have improved a little bit, but
Yeah, you've
um,
improved from your mom's basement to your kitchen to industry standard white contractor
right,
paper wall. Yeah, good.
an unpainted, yeah, just a primered wall.
Yeah.
Um, and joining us from the hottest state in the union, Texas, Eric Wyken. Eric, how are you?
Doing well. Just come off the road. A few days in Colorado. It's kind of nice.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I bet. Fantastic. Well, we got two topics, and then I told the guys that, maybe I was going to throw a surprise third topic in there, which Eric's face, the way Eric's face just lit up when I said that, I
Yeah,
feel like I have to do it now because he's just, as listeners of the podcast know, he's thrilled.
like the
Um,
Christmas tree in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
yeah,
That's how my face lit
yeah,
up.
he's just beaming from ear to ear. Great, you're going to throw a surprise at me. So, what we're going to get into today is essentially we're going to get into an ethical question around recruitment of athletes that have been sanctioned for doping. And then I have a question for the guys. Basically, somebody posed to me earlier this week about um, where where would be your college coaching dream job? And then based on how you answer that, maybe I'll have a follow up. But as for the first topic, and I quickly sort of want to move away from the specifics of the story when we get into discussing this, but I was reading a recruitment commitment article at LSU earlier this week. They recruited a swimmer from Bosnia and Herzegovina who had served a doping suspension. It was really a 2 year suspension that was reduced to 6 months on appeal, where essentially the accepted explanation on appeal was that he unknowingly took the thing that he came through on the drug test for. It does not really matter to me. It was some sort of asthmatic drug that's probably considered a stimulant on some level, as many asthmatic drugs are. Um, and I don't really want to get into the specifics of the LSU part of it. I just want to talk more in general, I guess, about doping and college recruiting and swimmers that have been sanctioned, and then what should be your process as a college coach on the other end. And Eric, of course, I know LSU is a Speedo team. You work for Speedo. That's another reason why I don't really want to talk in the specific about the LSU case. But at least give us whatever opinion you feel you can on a topic like this.
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult situation. You look at some of these instances, especially as the the ages of the athletes are getting younger and younger, and there's a situation here where it comes up that um, it's an inadvertent thing. He's presenting the supplement. The supplement's tested. The ingredient that they found is not actually on the list of ingredients there, and then on top of that, it's the kind of ingredient that's not. It doesn't end in OL. It's not, it's not a testosterone situation thing. So I guess there's certainly
Right.
he's had his sentence reduced, and then he served it, and then he's moving forward. So hoping that he learns from this situation and what he's ingesting in his body. But I see personally no problem in a situation like this, taking it on face value that this this athlete is recruitable. This isn't something that there's malicious intent, and for for that matter, anybody in kind of that part of the world where there's a lot of stuff that is really taken from them in terms of control. When it's like you're following this line because it means so much to your family. It's like your kids are put into a hard spot. We hear stories of it's like if you don't follow this line, then the money that's helping your family stay alive ceases to exist. So there's certainly some gravity to some of the stuff that's happening in and around him. But as far as this level, the kid can come on and learn his lesson and move forward. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an interesting ethical question here. I tend to agree with what you said, and that is, like, I think in most cases, I don't really believe in double jeopardy. And, like if somebody gets sanctioned for something and there's an agreed upon punishment for it and somebody has done the time, like that's the punishment. We've put a lot of effort and energy into deciding what the level of punishment is. And in this specific case, we're talking about somebody who ended up with a 6-month ban. They ended up having some European junior results voided. But I think also, like, where it gets more interesting for me is I think there's plenty of people out there. I happen to be one of those people who believe, for instance, that China as a country is engaged in state organized doping of athletes. And we have seen some elite Chinese athletes come to train in the NCAA. Not very many of them, but there have been some that have come into the NCAA system, and they're not necessarily, I think, for the most part, coming with any sanction behind them. But if you're somebody who believes that, is it ethical for you to recruit somebody who you have some reasonable suspicion may be using performance enhancing drugs? But maybe they haven't even been sanctioned for it. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's where it starts to get a little bit iffy when you're looking at an entire country behind a push like that. You have an athlete that's coming to you that up until this point is not tested positive. I guess it would just be a matter of seeing where the history is. If all of the negative tests and all the tests they've ever done have only been in China,
right,
then that's a huge red flag. But if there has been enough tests in and around competitions before and after, not specifically in China, that are being handled by other countries, governing bodies and drug testing people, I would be a little bit more open to that, like it being here, for example, or they were tested often in Australia, or anywhere else other than China.
Right.
Then it opens the mind, but then at the same time, you have to be very, very aware that it's going to come with consequences. Should you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong in this situation. So, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that if I was still a college coach, and this will lead into our next question, and I was still recruiting, I think it would be almost, I would be doing it on a case-by-case basis, because I think, for instance, I think I would put Russia in as a country where there's reasonable amount of smoke, if not a raging fire in terms of state-sanctioned doping. But I almost feel like you'd have to be at a certain level to be involved in that program. And I don't know, I would probably be put in the position of going on a case by case basis. I don't think I would feel real comfortable recruiting at a certain level.
Yeah, like
from
the
either of
Russian
those two
national
countries.
team.
Right.
You know,
And like there's plenty of people that represent Russia internationally that, for instance, like just grew up somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? And I like, I don't know, call me biased, nationalist, whatever. I'm not ignorant. I don't have my head in the sand in terms of people from other countries doping. I'm sure that they are. I just feel much more confident that there is state sanctioned doping. I don't believe that, like, for instance, and I'm one of the most critical people of the USOC out there. I have no inclination whatsoever that the USOC is like funding some sort of doping program like that. I just don't. I think that I don't think they're clever enough to, even if they wanted to. So that would definitely, I think that would come in to me. And I guess then the question is, and maybe we've got Joel back on the line. Hopefully,
Think so.
Can you hear us all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that there is a growth in sort of a win at all cost mentality at even within college swimming, right? We don't think of it as cutthroat as maybe some of the big revenue sports, but do you feel like we're trending towards more sort of win at all costs, or do you think that there's still kind of like a lot of honor in the sport of swimming and we're still sort of saved by being, I guess, more low key than those other sports?
Is that directed to me? I think
Yep.
win at all cost is a foolish way to go about it in the sport of swimming, especially at a university. But I also don't believe there's honor. So I think you're completely wrong on both accounts for your question.
You reject the premise of the question.
So I reject your question entirely, because first and foremost, if you're like, let's say, like, again, this is an SEC school, and again, taking all the particulars out of it, football is going to be the king there. If you win a national title or 10 national titles as an SEC school, how much does the athletic department care? Of course they like it, but if you win, if you win a single SEC game in football, all of your national championships are page 7, and everything about like the left tackles, like childhood growing up, is going to be taking over it. So what I'm saying is, like, if you win at all costs, and you do something even unwittingly illegal, you brought NCAA in to sniff out everything. And now they might find out something about football, which they do care about, or basketball, which they do care about, or baseball, or whatever the other sport is. So I think the problem is, a lot of times, because we're so insulated in the swimming community, that we think that winning actually means something. And it's one of the criteria for keeping your job at a big school like that, but it's not the only criteria. The other criteria could be gender equity, could be grade point average. It could be that the NCAA isn't coming in sniffing around. And the second thing is, that's all you need is it becomes whatever your school is, it becomes kind of known as the school that's willing to take risks and go after these kids that have doping on their resume. That's something, again, that kind of taints the whole athletic department. So much like at Penn State, I mean, remember how horrible everything was at Penn State. It wasn't just the football team that got blemished with that. The whole university was blemished, and still is, by what went on there. So what I'm saying is, like, if you become known as one thing, everyone else can use that as recruiting.
Right.
But on the other hand, obviously, if you have a team that's strong enough, maybe you can bring in one. But I think that's the thing, is you have to lead that clean life, all the time, and then you can bring in the one person maybe to take you to the edge. Because if you do win, that does kind of wipe out a lot of the blemishes. However, I think it's just too big a risk. I know just at the Division III level I was at, we would like, hey, check out the Twitter account. Go back as far as you can on the Twitter account, because that's all you need. It doesn't matter how fast a kid is. It doesn't matter, oh, we won conference, but there's this. What's going to be the story for a Division III team? We won conference, or this person, used, whatever, maybe racially insensitive, maybe is like, whatever it might have been, that becomes the story. And so one bad story can wipe out a national championship. And so you're taking a lot of risk. You're like, oh yeah, I really trust this kid. It's like a kid you just met, it's nice of you, but again, you're going to get burned at some point. I'm not saying in this case it's a bad thing. Again, it could be a reasonable error. But how many reasonable errors are you willing to take a risk on?
So, I mean, I think I hear what you're saying, just looking at the landscape of college swimming, one thing that I see going on is I think something that we take for granted is how much the competitive level improves every year. I think a lot of ink is spilled or words are spoken about it where people go, wow, I can't believe how much faster, it is to make NCAAs this year. And and this sort of relates back. I recorded something without you guys, because stuff comes up timely in between podcast recordings on Steve Youngblood parting ways at Florida, and I have no idea what happened there, right? And I think anybody who's trying to talk about it right now seems to have no idea what happens there. But something happened that has to have led to a coach leaving, at this point of the season from such a premier program. And I just think that that the underbelly of that increased level of performance is that things are a lot more competitive, that like a lot of coaches are really walking on a wire's edge in terms of, even though they don't get the salary of the football coach, almost there's expectation, right, that they're going to live a similar lifestyle to the football coach in terms of dedication to what they're doing. And that does have consequences in people's lives, and it does influence, what kind of decisions we end up making.
Sure.
And I could see somebody, for instance, it's great for me to sit in my chair and say, I wouldn't recruit a national teamer from China. I could see somebody going at, I don't know, I don't want to throw out a random school, but if there was a mythical 15th created SEC school, if Mississippi State decided to bring back swimming, right, and they were like, we got to win SECs, let's get this kid, let's do it,
right,
because she'll take first in the 200 fly, and we need to get up in this conference. I could see that scenario.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's the thing is you have to kind of look at what your athletic department in general values. And again, if it's hey, we moved up to third place, you put what kind of risk versus the reward of third place. No one cares, especially at a school, let's just get Alabama, for instance, that's used to winning national championships for football. It's used to coming in first. And for them, that becomes the new bar. First is the bar. First is average. And winning nationals, then that becomes above average. And so now you're well, we came in second with this person. You're well, that's not good enough. Or we moved up to 32nd in the nation, which for a swimming coach, you're wow, that really is impressive. However, for the athletic department, you're 32nd. It's not even bowl eligible, is it? And it's oh, we don't have bowls. But yeah. And so that's the thing is you end up having to explain a lot. And so at the end of the day, you really have to kind of be able to be true to yourself and also to your team. Again, within a team, there's going to be jealousy too. All of a sudden, you just lost your roster spot or you lost your relay spot, and this person is someone that might have cheated. Again, there's so many different layers that you have to manage, whether it's the administrative side, NCAA bringing the strike force in. Whether it's on your own roster or whether it's your own kind of values, all that has to come into play, because again, at any point you could lose your job, and you want to be able to this is the hill I'm willing to die on. And so that's the one where, bringing a kid in that has a questionable past, whatever it might be, whether it's drugs, illicit drugs, or performance enhancing drugs, that becomes kind of, again, the banner for your team, because everyone's going to start recruiting that. It's oh, you want to go to that place? They only take people that are bringing that take PEDs anyway. Someone's going to say that, because going back to your first foolish question of honor among coaches, there's not. because it is. It's high stakes as far as getting recruits. I've known a couple of
Yeah.
coaches that have lost their jobs because they weren't getting the recruits in. You get like a year or two to bring in recruits, and if you're not doing it, you might be out. And so again, there's a pressure to have that recruit and to move yourself up.
So now that we've painted a bleak picture of the college swimming landscape, I
And the questions you asked.
And I want to segue to my next question, which is, if you could just work as a college coach at any college, where would you go? And I'm going to make a couple special rules for this, and they're mainly to accommodate my choice. So,
Of course.
so sorry, it's my
So
question.
I've
and
created
I
this
would-
board game, and it's called Chris Wins. So I'll
It's
give
called
you
Chris
guys the
Wins.
rules of Chris Wins.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now you'll have to play by Chris Wins.
Yeah.
And my rules are, you can choose who else coaches there. So you don't have to choose to join an existing coaching staff. And you don't necessarily even have to want to be the head coach of said team, right? You can choose whatever job you want. That's rule number one. And second one is, just to spice things up here, you can choose a school that doesn't currently have a swimming and diving program or a swimming program, because who cares about those guys who do all the bouncy stuff? You know what I mean? I guess athletic directors and coaches that want to win. But anyway, I digress. You can choose to create a swimming program at a school that doesn't currently have one or used to have one and does have one. And Eric's been silent for a while. And of course, I've just changed the rules on him. So anyway, Eric, where would you go?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because then I have to put my hat on as wanting to be a coach and wanting to be in collegiate coaching and that kind of thing. And I guess what
You can say nowhere, and you can tell us why.
yeah,
But
no,
Yeah, there you
but if I'm going to pick a
That'd actually be the interesting answer. Tell us why nowhere.
tell you why I don't. I will say.
Yeah.
I will say, if I'm going to just take a coaching job and be a college coach and have some opportunity to coach older athletes like that, it would actually be UCSD. So,
why? University of California, San Diego is your answer.
Yep.
Okay, and why?
well, for starters, have you been there?
I've been to San Diego.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's right there by Torrey Pines and La Jolla. Great facilities, 250-meter tanks, basically next door to each other. It's consistent weather. It's easy to recruit kids into that kind of environment in terms of wanting to be in a specific place. As far as the staff goes, if we're talking a combined program, that certainly allows me the opportunity to bring in an extra person and looking at you'd have to have a dive program. I mean, maybe not. I don't know.
Yep.
Durden doesn't need one up the coast. He seems to be doing okay without a dive program, but I don't know.
Well, they're trying to get something going.
I don't know if I necessarily am trying to get a national championship. As much fun as that sounds, it's a different level of work and whatnot. But the biggest thing to me is to bring in somebody who does have background in whether it's an undergrad in psychology or as you have. I think a lot of this is just to try to see if we would hire you to be on our staff.
Yeah.
That's what I think a lot of this conversation.
Oh, so you're
This
making
is a
yourself the
marketing
head coach.
ploy.
Yes,
Chris.
would we hire Chris?
We got
to be on
duped
our
into this,
staff?
didn't we? Son of a
Exactly.
gun. I didn't see it till
So,
now.
But to answer, yes, I would hire people that would be willing to would be open-minded to the idea of positive psychology and just the not so old school methods of coaching, because that just ends up getting you in the public eye for the wrong reasons, and then, as Joel said, the NCAA comes sniffing around in your basketball or football or baseball. I would assume it's actually baseball down there.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden people are sniffing around that. That would be, I guess if I'm picking individual people, that's difficult. It's,
You don't have to pick your staff. You just don't have to, so I just mean, like, there's going to be people that answer this question, for instance, and they might go something like, I want to be an assistant coach at University of Texas because then I get to hang out with Eddie Reese every day.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And there might be other people who are like, I don't really know the people there. I don't know if I'd get along with them. I don't want you to hold back from your answer, because it's not necessarily like the people.
No, but
you'll understand when
yeah,
I get to my answer. You'll understand why I put that in there.
It's far more important for me to hire. You can teach coaches to do certain things. You can work out the X's and O's. You can get better at that. You can have people come in. It's another thing, as we've all talked about. It's another thing when you're recruiting coaches to be on your staff that are decent people. So
yeah.
If there was actually a person, which is kind of funny, I had an assistant coach at Heartland Aquatics when I was there, and she actually worked for one of the local companies. It's agribusiness all over the place, dealing with a lot of
corn.
Actual, not that no, like actual.
Oh.
Medicine for animals and stuff like that, but super
Made from
Medicine
corn.
made from corn.
Yeah. No, but like double major in biology and biochemistry, and just have an amazing ability to connect with athletes and listen to them and be there for them, and just be able to. We had a great dynamic in that she could sit back and observe and offer points, and it would be easy to take them from her and just take that constructive criticism. But just having somebody who has a level of empathy and understanding for kids that is not always easy to find in people. And she actually dealt with injuries, so she had a lot of that on her own swimming. So just having that added experience as an athlete is what it's like to work through certain things.
Well, so I declined your theoretical job offer to be an assistant coach at UC
I said somebody
San
like
Diego.
you. I didn't say I would hire.
And I just want to say I'm declining because I can't afford to move my family out to San Diego to be an assistant coach.
That's why I picked it
at UC. And I just don't think Kate would go for it. So thank you for the offer. I appreciate your consideration, but I will come on as a consultant and fly out there 3 times a year. I'm happy to do that and help you set up some of that piece.
Joel,
of it.
Joel, the HR code for the job posting is going to be in your email here in about 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. Joel, what you got? Where are you going to be?
Well, it depends. Like, obviously, you didn't really, give any parameters because, again, this is the Chris wins game we're playing. So if it's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 or something like that.
It's your choice, Joel.
Yeah. Well, then I'd probably stay with Division 3, and it wouldn't matter where we're working. I think that the big thing, like, if I was just going to say like a Division 1 program. If I were going to do that, you kind of have to look at all the different layers that are going to bring people to that program. What's going to make, because it's all about recruiting. What's going to make recruiting easier? It's going to be, you have to have a diverse group of majors. You have to have a place that people want to live. And right now, people are going to want to play where the weather's pretty temperate. Obviously, the pools are a huge part of it. Then also the money that comes with it. And so like a Stanford is obviously great just because of the facilities they have. It's a university that's recognized, everywhere. And, recruiting is going to be a little bit easier in that regard, in that you don't have to explain, where Stanford is to people. It's 72 and sunny every day, or like, obviously the hard part then is just the academic standards, the rigor and things like that. You look at like at Georgia, it's also a very good school, and they got the SEC kind of money coming in. I think Georgia would be a good one, especially with their ability with the lottery to basically in-state tuition is if you're a qualifier, I think you're almost free, isn't it?
It's the Hope Scholarship. I mean, just if we're throwing it out there, essentially anybody with a 1080 on their SATs and a 3.0 out of 4 on their high school GPA, if you're admitted to a Georgia public university and you live in the state of Georgia, the Hope Scholarship covers 50% of the cost of attendance. So you're already at 50%
right,
because it's an in-state.
So something like that would be good. And then so like Stanford and Georgia would be ideal. Again, if you're like wiping out everything else, as far as like any other pitfalls or any history or anything like that. Just if you're going to start up a program, obviously one of those two would be great. The problem obviously with Stanford is, how are you going to afford to live there? I mean, hey, I make $250,000. Great. Did you want that studio, or what?
Right.
What apartment are you looking to rent at? Versus like
Yeah.
Athens, the money would go a little bit farther. So I would say something like Georgia would be good. But for me personally, that's the layer for school is what you're looking at is who's going to come there, what kind of athletes. And generally the athletes that are very good swimmers are very good students. But then also you're looking at like Eric was kind of going deep into it was the assistants. Hard to get at Stanford, at Berkeley. These are really expensive cities to live in. To get an assistant coach or your own coaching salary, it's pretty hard. And then also you've got the layer of if it's a combined program, and are you at two different conference meets? Is one conference meet? Are you at both nationals? That's why I'm like, I'm good with Division III. I like those kinds of kids. I'll just go Division III. But if I were going to go for a Division I university startup, like what would be the model? I think Georgia would be the place to start with. Obviously, everyone's going to be like, whatever they're along. We're just saying again as a game, the
Yeah.
basis you need is affordability. You need a school people want to go to. You need a culture, climate area that people want to be a part of, and affordability. So I think Georgia meets those criteria.
So you came really close, and you covered some of the points that are going to be in mine. And I would say my runner up also was Stanford, and I do think, I mean, part of the way Stanford has gotten around this, my understanding that Greg Meehan and Dan Schemmel both live in houses that
Right.
the university owns.
The
That's
university
how they've sort
they
of
do
like,
that for professors and for coaching
yeah,
staff. They have a university owned because no one else in the world can afford there except Bill Gates. Yeah.
right, right. So that would honestly be my second answer, and my first answer probably going to surprise a lot of people, even people that know me pretty well. But
Colgate
I would
University.
no,
Come on, Colgate. Come on,
I
Colgate.
would love to coach at Georgia Tech again.
Oh man,
I would
I'm just
love
freaking. We waited all this. I just. How do you turn this off? This is crap.
I would love to coach at Georgia Tech again, and that's sort of why. But I will, to be honest, I will That's why I specified not necessarily with the people that are there, because I don't think it's any secret. I don't get along with my former boss, who's the head coach there. We didn't have a good ending to our relationship. I have apologized to her for some of the way that I behaved at the end of it. I'm still waiting for my apology in the other direction, and I suspect I'll probably be waiting for the rest of my life. But I think it is an amazing. That said, I think it's an amazing place, and every time I reflect on my time there, it's mostly really, really good memories. I think that I hear you, Joel, like talking about Division III in a sense where I don't know. There's a sense, I guess, that they're more sort of student athletes, like the actual ideal of a student athlete, than you might find at a lot of sort of high-powered Division I schools. But my experience at Georgia Tech was that the kids that I coached there were legitimate student athletes. These were primarily kids that came there for a really rigorous academic experience. Most of the time in engineering, some of them, wanted to go on to be doctors too. I mean, that was sort of like the main profile. So just incredibly dedicated people. And I think about the swimmers that I coached there, and I feel really fortunate to have come across some of those people. And it's been, even as I every year move farther and farther away from it, it's actually, I see myself gravitating towards following the lives of these people, because they just really are truly exceptional people. And so I think it presents a unique opportunity. I told this to someone, they were like, why wouldn't you prefer Georgia? Like, if you're going to pick a school down in Georgia, like you said, like Georgia has the perfect setup. But like, having experienced Georgia Tech and having experienced the kind of kid that goes to school there, like I really, that's where I would choose.
I think also if we have to kind of throw in the caveat of like the 4 people that listen to this podcast, they're like, well, this is
Hey, it's
ridiculous.
seven.
Obviously, you want to text us
Hey,
7.
Joel, I took a stance against Kyle Sockwell yesterday for that kind of self-deprecating comment, and
Okay.
we had 4,000 downloads of this podcast.
Well, that's when I'm
So
not
I'm
on
pretty
it, though.
sure-
When I'm back on
Yeah.
it, it goes back to 4 is the problem. But the criteria of again is like every university obviously has the pitfall, and so like I think again you want to kind of outline the rules of this game is that we're kind of just eliminating a lot of the pitfalls that are there because we don't know what goes on in administration. I remember once this one Division One coach and I were on a pool deck at a training trip. He's like, man, I really want to get in Division Three. It's like even playing field. It'd be so nice. Everyone has it. It's like, are you kidding me? Like again, everyone on the outside always thinks the grass is always greener, and but again, we think of these things, and that's why it's a game. Just so again, this is all just clarifying the rules of the game. That again, everyone of course has pitfalls and administration and things like that you need to deal with. But I think again, what we're hitting on is again, kind of goes down to what kind of athletes are you looking to work with, because again, certain coaching styles, like if you're one of those like get in and go, shut up, don't, no questions asked kind of a thing, then obviously some schools aren't going to work for you very well. Like a Harvard, like a Princeton, or like you're saying with the Georgia Tech or something, where a lot of engineering students were just how the nature of the student athletes that you're getting. And so that's part of it. And you're also, as we age, that's the thing is like, if you have a family, that changes everything too. Versus, and that's because I'll have, some of my former swimmers are like, I want to coach at this level or this level. It's like, well, do it now, dude. Because again, if you want to work at a big university, there's going to be a lot of things that go to it that you don't get to see. Everyone always sees them jumping up and down, pumping their fist at NCAAs. It's like you don't see them jumping up and down, pumping their fist 4:30 a.m. At that first morning practice. But that's the energy level and enthusiasm that you're expected to have as an assistant. And again, so much of this, even at Division III, recruiting is everything. You have to have a university that people are going to want to go to, they can afford to want to go be there. And I bring up football and other sports a lot of times, but you look at like Heisman Trophy winners. What schools are they going to go to? It's always like a coast school, especially in the lower half of the country. It's like again, athletes are, you're up in Pennsylvania. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black. It's 20 degrees out. Or you can go down to UCLA. It's sunny, 72. You're like, I'm taking that. And so that's part of the nature of it. So again, we get everyone has their home state or their home university that they appreciate, but these are factors that go into it. So it's not always about the quality of the coach. It's also the quality of the university and the quality of things that you're able to offer those student athletes.
All right. Well, that said, let me ask this. Since we created the game as Chris wins, if you could change the rules of the game to influence your choice, what would you change? And I'll go to Eric first.
I don't even know what I would really necessarily change.
What would you change about college swimming in order to make it more appealing? Because like I felt that moment where you were like, am I even interested?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, if you want me in college coaching, honestly, you got to try to put the toothpaste back in the tube. This recruiting situation where you're having to go at sophomores and you're having to do all this, I want no part of that. Like that does not sound appealing at all. I mean, we all grew up in a time, and I was a product of it where, it was your senior year you were making decisions, or
you started July.
Yeah,
right.
You started after your junior year. Yeah,
we're obviously having more conversations earlier on, and I wasn't one of those. But it was like there was an opportunity for kids who were really late bloomers, and again, I was one of those where it was like I wasn't even really recruitable at some levels until after my senior year of high school swimming, like that March, where all of a sudden my times were decent enough to be like, oh, he's still progressing. Like somebody had to drop my name to the school that I ended up at first in order to even be recognized with it. I just think it's such a rat race with having to, you have to be a social media coordinator, or you have to have somebody on staff that's good at it, or because you can't rely on your SID, because that's just not happening. So sports information director, for anybody who doesn't know the acronyms of collegiate swimming.
And for anybody who doesn't know, in most situations in college swimming, you're dealing with somebody who might be following your team for 1 to 2 years, and if they're
it's an SID intern.
It's basically like they're about as useful as HR in a lot of senses. You got to do
never
all the
heard
work and submit it to them for them to just submit it somewhere else.
Yeah, they've never heard of swimming, and if they actually get any good, that'll be a couple weeks before they leave writing about
for a
it.
great job. But no,
I guarantee that every coach's answer would be the same as Eric's. That if you could change anything, whether you're a club coach or you're a college coach, it'd be changing recruiting. Because as a college recruiter, now basically you're forecasting. You're trying. Obviously, you have a certain level that this person is going to be there, but you're forecasting, especially when it comes to guys. The late bloomer now. That's why Division II, I would assume, is going to start to get a lot of these kids that might have fallen through the cracks.
They already are.
But yeah, but so if you talk to any club coach, obviously they're the pressure you're putting on a 14, 15-year-old girl early on, I'm sure club coaches want nothing to do with college swimming right now either because of that. And I remember sitting into so many of these meetings for like NCAA rules at the start of the year. We all sit around going through those things. It's like, oh, this was put in place because of football. This was put in place because of basketball. This is put in place because of AAU. This is all this stuff that's put into place. I can't think of any rules that went into place because swimming was the one, breaking the rule. It never was the case. And basically what they're hoping, every coach, even football coaches are hoping, is legislation comes in place to limit themselves from doing what they're doing. But they know that if they don't do it, someone else is going to get that recruit. Someone else gets that recruit, then their team is going to be diminished and they're going to lose out. And so they've got to burn through assistants. They've got to burn through GAs. And it doesn't matter if it's football or basketball or swimming. So I guarantee everyone's going to be on board with Eric's answer of, if anything could be changed in college swimming, it would be recruiting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear you. And yeah, it has a trickle-down effect. I mean, it is putting performance pressure on the kids that we coach here at the club level. And it's just pushing down to younger and younger ages in terms of like, you've got to sort of show a certain level of performance by your sophomore year of high school, because that's when the gun goes off and, you start to like get on the radar. Or you not start, you should be on the radar.
Yeah.
There's a feeling that you should be on the radar by that point. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think that even as I say that, there's a reason besides not getting along with my former boss that I left Georgia Tech. I thought the lifestyle was not sustainable. And so even as I, give that answer, would I, I'm not sure how much money even would get me to pick up and take a job like that, because I really would have serious questions about what it would do to the rest of my life.
For anyone listening, I do have a number where I would be willing to pick up. So Chris is at none. Mine, you include in the link below my cell phone for the number and number.
If you're watching this in the comment section, you want to hire Joel, just put your salary bid.
I've got a number in mind.
Get a text.
He's definitely, he does have a number, but
city, state, dollar amount.
Chris has principles. Joel
just email them directly.
Joel wants to
Rolling
eat.
J. No.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I would have serious reservations about lifestyle, and not to even out the college coaches that are my friends, but a lot of them seem like they're having a really hard time. Like they don't seem happy. They don't seem happy with their jobs, with what they're doing. They're working really hard at it. They're doing incredibly rewarding stuff. They're moving mountains for kids, but I'm not sure what it's doing for them. And so I would have serious reservations on that front. Well, what a depressing point
So
to
we're
end the podcast
so
on.
everybody's circling
So-
back to where I was, like, as I was trying to come up with an answer. Like, I don't really know about this, except for Joe, who's like, just name a place.
Yeah.
Let me know the team's colors so my shoes and my shirt can coordinate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my best piece of advice would be college swim coaches, stop waiting for some greater body to fix this for you, because they're not going to. They're not going to come over the hill. I know it sounds almost impossible that there would be some sort of collective disarmament, right? You'd always have somebody who didn't want to get on board with that. But I do think there's a bit of an unsustainable situation here, and I don't know what's going to happen with it. What a great and happy podcast we've had, guys. Appreciate you both for coming on. I appreciate your candor for playing the game of Chris Wins, and I'm sure the listeners enjoyed it as well. If you want more uplifting, positive psychology-based content, you can listen to some podcasts here, but and like and subscribe. But you can also follow me on Instagram, ChrisD_coach. And actually, I have a Facebook page that has a lot more followers, but most people seem to prefer not Facebook, even though Facebook owns Instagram. But do we want to get into all that? Chris DeSantis Coaching or CD Swim Coach at Facebook. And, of course, comment, like, subscribe on this on YouTube. And you can subscribe to the podcast as well on iTunes. I still haven't figured out how to get it on another platform. Eric promised to help me, but then, I won't throw you on the bus.
Yeah, still waiting.
It's
Still waiting for my increase in pay.
He's
for
still-
the last
he is
thing I
still-
stepped up to help you with.
Yeah, he's still complaining about this whole pay issue, and I just think, show me some results first, Eric. Okay.
Millennials.
Joel? Yeah, I know. All right, thanks, guys, and I'll
All right, thanks.
see you later.
Thanks, Chris.
See you, Chris.